Okay, so 10 seconds in, that's our normal start time for the videos. Don't know why it only picks them up after about 10 seconds. We're going to swap over to the camera. Here we go. Okay, so let's see. So far we have two of our legs. We've got our green and our orange. We are well into the blue. Okay, so we just finished row 13. By the way, this is the row counter I was talking about. You just click that big button and it adds another row to your list. So now I can keep track of where we are, which is going to make this a lot easier. Alright, so...
This really cool thing.
I'm doing my stream, honey.
Oh, right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there will be some background noises, just fair warning. One of my kids is playing Rec Room with one of his friends over the PlayStation. So he's going to be in here. He'll probably be talking. So there will be some background noises. Hopefully he's not going to be talking louder than I am. But given how quiet we know I am on the stream, that might be an issue. We'll see. I'll know for sure on the playback. Let's see, so... There we go. Okay, so that's stitch 1. And we're at the point where we're just stitching all the way around. It's going to be 42, just like it has been. Single crochets.
Hi, Dad.
I'm streaming. Will you guys... The joys of working in the living room. My home office is the dining room, so it's not much better if I were to move over there. Plus, I don't have... At that desk, the only computer that would be good enough quality to handle my stream is my work computer, and I'm not using my work computer for streaming. Mostly because I keep my work and private lives very distinct and separate as much as possible. I don't add people to my friends on Facebook or anything like that until I will no longer be working with them, unless I know that they're a person whose values align very much with mine. In the case of my friend, one of my friends there, who pretty much she and we met during training, and we started off strong and have just been really good friends. I've been with her as she's undergoing a messy divorce, you know, all sorts of stuff like that. So, but she got added to my Facebook friends, you know, not too long after I started working alongside her, but her values and mine are pretty much hand in hand. So, but even the bosses that I have who seem to have very similar values, I don't add them until they're no longer going to be my boss. Because I post a heck of a lot of anti-capitalist, anti-corporate stuff on my Facebook, because it is in line with my values. And yeah, I don't need my boss seeing all of that. Even if I know that the boss agrees with me, it's just a bit risky to try and do that. So, if I move to a different company, or they move on to bigger and better things, sure, I will add them as a friend then. I'm still very good friends with two of my bosses from a previous workplace. In fact, a third one who I have as a friend, we weren't super close, but we found a house that we are very much looking into buying. And what he left that job for was to become a realtor. And so I'm going to use him as my realtor, because I'd rather work with someone I know and trust than with a stranger. Nothing wrong with strangers. Some of them are very good people, but, you know, if you can work with someone that is local to you, that you know personally, it's always a good idea. unless that person will owe you money, because you never, ever, ever want to work with your friends. So, okay, so, sorry if you see me messing around. I've got friends that are chatting with me. Okay, so I clicked the button and now it reads 14. So that's the row we've just completed. We are now doing row 15. So row 15 is going to be the last of the just straight stitch around. Once we complete row 15, we will start our decrease rows. Now remember, on this, what we've been doing is one decrease per every 6 stitches all the way around. Well, I think it's going to be 6 decrease. No, wait. I decreased slower than that. It's 3 stitches per decrease round. So that's why it wasn't working out in math-wise, because we don't want to increase the same or decrease at the same rate we increase, because we want it to have that taper shape, but we don't want it to be an extreme taper. So I gotta figure out a better. That gonna work? That'll work. Set our current legs where you guys can see them. Dadgummit. I'm having an issue with left and right today, apparently. Okay, so that was... So. We're going to do our 42 stitches around, just like we did before. And that'll get through row 15. Once row 15 is done, we'll start our decrease rounds. After the decrease rounds are started, remember we're doing one decrease round and then we do one round just single stitch around. So I'll be counting on the decrease rounds but not on the single stitch rounds, because I don't need to on the single stitch rounds. Makes it nice and easy when I don't have to count. Door. Okay, so but as we can see, we're going to have a nice flat bottom to the elephant's feet. And I'm going to try to put this together in a way that requires as little sewing as possible. Because I want to show people ways that they can do things so they don't need to sew, because I know not everybody enjoys sewing. I know that for the most part I don't enjoy sewing unless it's on a plushie, because there's something very pleasing, satisfying, I guess, to sewing a plushie together, because when you sew a plushie together, it goes from multiple disparate pieces. Hello to 9, and tell Jeff hello as well. You know, I know he's got a Twitch account. He could always pop in too if he wants. But I can't see that he'd be as he would probably be far more interested in my gaming streams anyway, as opposed to the crafting streams, because, I mean, crafting stream versus gaming stream, I'm sure he would be far more interested in me playing Star Wars The Old Republic, or 2 weeks ago I did Guild Wars, because Star Wars is having their double XP event, and since I'm trying to play the game as close as possible to a base player, not a subscriber, so that people who are new to the game can have a decent expectation of, okay, here's what level I'll be after I finish this quest chain, things like that. I'm still getting the extra XP from being a subscriber, but I'm trying to avoid, like, I try to avoid killing things as much as possible if there's a way that I can avoid it, because I don't want, I want to try and keep as close to what they will be getting XP-wise as possible. I'm not using any of my XP boosting items, things like that. Okay, that's round 15. So let me pull up my pattern. Have to get to my mouse again. Okay. This pattern, for those who are not aware, is one that I have written myself. Well, I'm in the process of writing it as I crochet it, so you know. But it's one that I've done myself, and it's going to be a stuffed elephant for my niece once it is done. Okay, so round 16, we start with a decrease. Remember, we are using the invisible decrease method from Planet June. So we go under the first stitch of the first two, or the first half of the V, and we do one stitch through those. And that puts all of the shape of the decrease inside the plushie, so it's not visible on the outside that you decrease there. That's the invisible decrease. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Alright, so 13 is our last stitch, and then we're going to decrease again. Now, I believe that one of the people viewing right now is River, and River is wanting to learn to crochet, so I will probably, if she wants, slow down on some of these stitches to show people what I'm doing for those who are interested. I think you said 2, 10, 9 that you're trying to learn. So that was 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I need to get a longer gooseneck on this camera. That's what I need to do, because I need a gooseneck that I can put around and behind my shoulder so you guys are seeing my hands from above, instead of looking at them from the opposite direction. That would be the easiest. Okay, so this is our decrease again, so that makes it 27. Math, ugh. 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. This should be 39 when we're done. 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Yes, we're right on track. Okay. So, row 16, our first round with decreases. We are right where we need to be, which meant we were right at 42 for all of the increased rows, or for the last increased row, and then all of our single crochet rows. Okay. I will be putting this pattern up for anyone who wants it, and I think it's going to be a fairly simple pattern unless things get tricky with the, hey, let's avoid any seaming. If it looks like that'll be getting tricky, then I might just be like, okay, here's how you do if you don't want to seam, or here's how you do it if you do. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to show how to do a basic single crochet stitch. I'm going to move it closer to the camera. So, That is not easy. It's easier to see when it's farther away. That makes no sense. Probably a focusing issue. So as you can see, each of these rows has a V as the top. That's a single stitch for each of those V's. To do a single crochet stitch, you put it under both V's, you grab the yarn with the hook of the crochet hook. I believe that's actually called this part here is either the neck or the yoke, that slightly thinner part. That's what you're going to have your yarn against when you pull the hook over and pull through. So that gives you 2 loops on your hook. Then you pull the yarn over and pull it through both of those. So that gives you 2 or 1 stitch and a new loop on your hook. So we're going to go all the way around. And I don't have to count this time because we are not on a decrease or increase row. If it's single crochet around, no need to count. You just do 1 in every stitch all the way around. And honestly, if I weren't trying to do this as a stream, I could probably do this without counting for the most part, just because for me, I can generally gauge, okay, I've done about 1/3 of it, here's our next decrease. But because I'm doing this for other people's benefit, so they can see it, that's why I'm counting out loud on those decrease rows. Okay. If we finish this leg today, which we are about to finish row 17, and it's a 31 row pattern, I think we've got a good chance of finishing today. If we do, I'll start the next leg, and that way I can show magic loop and increases so that people can see how those work. Magic loop is, like I said, the one thing in crochet I actually feel does count as magical. There are a few stitches that I guess I could see it, like the waffle stitch or making a puff stitch or a shell stitch. I've got a lovely pattern that I can use to make dragon scaled items. So in my Etsy shop I actually have some, I call them dragon egg pouches because when you close them they look like dragon eggs. So those are pretty cool, and I actually can make little mini dragons that are just the right size to fit in the pouch, and so you can have a dragon egg that hatches. So I think I've only sold one of the pair of dragon egg and pouch ones, and it's because they were both what I call cotton candy colored. They were pale blue and sort of a pale vibrant pink, if pale vibrant is a thing. It's not pastel, but it wasn't like a fuchsia. Kim, you know colors, I don't. Or Tin 9, you know colors, I don't. Feel free to suggest options here. I'm pretty sure you saw my cotton candy dragon when I posted it, because I think you helped me with the photo editing for the colors. Okay, so this is our next decrease round. Now, unlike on our increase rounds, we're not going to be alternating on which spot we decrease. So we're just going to be decreasing first stitch of every section. So I still need to get my light box set up, but I just don't have room for it. So once I've got that light box set up, it's going to be really easy to get good photos for product sales. Just where? That's the thing. That's why I want that new house so much. The new house, I'll have a dedicated home office, which is something I've been really needing. Like I said, I work in the dining room, which is a fairly high traffic area of our house, because you have to go through the dining room to get into the kitchen if you're upstairs, or you have to go through the dining room to get outside if you're downstairs. Okay, so 1, 2, this is going to be every 12 stitches, by the way. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. Now I'm going to come over here, and again, so on the decreases, to make them invisible, we go under the first loop, but so we're only getting half of the V. And then we go under the first loop of the second stitch over and pull through those. And see, now that decrease is not really visible from the outside. So, okay, that's 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay. You know, speaking of things I haven't had room for, I still haven't set up that 3D printer I bought last September. Because I just haven't had a spot to put it. Like, I've got the spot planned out for it. But I need to move other stuff off of the spot that it's going to be going before I can do that, and space is such a premium in my house. Okay. Let's see. Alright. So we're now at the point where we're just doing single stitch around for the rest of Munchkin. I'm still streaming. You're coming up here to harass your brother? Okay, well. Okay. Yeah, Rec Room's not been acting right when he tries to log in on it. Okay. Speaking of, did you take your meds today? Ah, he's ignoring me. Okay. Alright, so now we are on a single stitch around row. We've just finished row 18. These, by the way, are continuous rounds instead of joined rounds. If it were a joined round, I would be doing a single crochet stitch here and then going all the way around so that we wouldn't have this slight spiral. They would each be the same row or same level. For plushies for a little kid, I don't think it matters as much. I do have a friend that I'm going to be making a very special plushie for, and I will probably do joined rounds on that one, but I don't think that I'm going to do that one on stream because I don't want that friend to see the plushie as I'm making it, because it's going to be a surprise for them. So, okay. Things in my world this week. Of course, it was 4th of July last week on Sunday. We didn't really do anything, and I'm sure I mentioned that in the thing. We're just, because of the pandemic, we're not going out to the fireworks show. We were able to see some of the fireworks show from our house because we live relatively close to the river, and what they always do in our area is they do a fireworks show off of one of the bridges so that it goes out over the river. They choose an area that is relatively far from the nesting grounds of the, I want to say they're sandhill cranes that nest in our river every year because they don't want to disturb them. Sorry, I have cat hair in my nose and it is itchy. But they do that so that there's very little risk of fire. Everything is nice and contained in one area. And I mean, it is a beautiful show, and they have it set up so that people can go to local parks that are near there and sit at one of those parks. They'll generally have live music. They'll have, every time I've gone, there's always been a machine that makes soap bubbles that they just use a piece of cardboard over the top so the soap bubbles come out as a particular shape, then they cut it off and they float away as these big shaped soap bubbles. So those are really cool. Kids love those. Mostly when we go to when we go to it, the boys just kind of wander around and pet every dog they see. Asking permission, of course. That's something I drilled into them at an early age. You do not pet a dog unless you can ask permission. You don't run up and just grab a dog or anything like that. You ask permission. You crouch down to make yourself closer to the dog's level. You offer the dog your hand before you actually try to touch the dog. If it is a friendly dog, and generally the owners will say yes, they're a friendly dog, you can absolutely pet them. They love attention. Then you can go ahead after the dog has sniffed your hand. They'll probably try to lick your hand, or they'll try to push their hand under it, demanding petting. That's when you can pet the dog. And I've always impressed that on the boys. For cats you see outside, you always crouch down to be closer to their level. You hold a hand out, you let the cat approach you, you don't approach it. And if the cat seems favorable to being petted, then absolutely go ahead and pet it. But if it is an outdoor cat, as soon as you get home, wash your hands before you touch any of our cats, because there's no way to guarantee that cat does not have something like FLV or Feluke, and you would not want to give that to your cats at home, even though most of our cats are vaccinated against those things. But one of our cats is almost 19, and at about age 16, the vet said we're not going to vaccinate her anymore because she's too old and we don't want to risk her getting sick from the vaccine. Okay, we're now starting row 20, just for everyone who is interested. But yeah, there are very good ways to take precautions to protect your pets from diseases. Vaccination is the best way to do it, but in the case of our very old Sun Tzu, she is very old, and so she's reached a point it's just not safe for her to get the vaccines. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now we're going to decrease again. Speaking of vaccines, if you have it available in your area, you should absolutely look into getting the COVID vaccine. I've had it. My kids have had it. My roommate, who is immune compromised, has had it. My partner, who has had it. Of all of us, the only one who got even mildly sick from the vaccine was my partner, who always reacts fairly badly to any vaccine. He gets sick from the flu shot every year too. And even him, he had a fever, he had all body aches, and that was about it. And within 24 hours, other than the soreness in the injection site, even for the second shot, we were pretty much symptom-free of any pain, again, soreness in the injection site. I think my left arm was sore about 3 days with both the first and second shot. It's absolutely worth it to protect yourself. Even if you're vaccinated, continue to wear a mask. There are a lot of variants out there that are making people sick. Yeah, some people do get a bit sicker from the vaccines, but it's still worth it to get it because it's so much less stress than COVID itself. And again, you should continue to wear your mask if you're going out to stores, out to public places, because there are a lot of variants. If you're going to see people who you know are vaccinated and you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask around them. But if you know people who are unvaccinated, even if you're vaccinated, you should probably wear a mask, because if you've been out and about, you could have picked it up and just be asymptomatic. because that's a big thing of what the vaccine does. It doesn't stop you catching COVID. It makes it less likely that you'll catch it. But if you do catch it,
Hey, I see it.
it makes you very, very unlikely to get super sick from COVID. Most people who have been vaccinated who have gotten COVID after end up being asymptomatic. But that doesn't mean you can't spread it to others, which is why I say if you're going to be around people who are unvaccinated, continue to wear your mask. I've got an elderly neighbor. She's in her 90s. She can't get vaccinated due to her age and her infirmities. I help her with groceries and things like that. So I always wear my mask when I go to see her.
Wait, where are you? Where are all of you?
Okay.
Look, there.
So
We get
14,
lost so easy.
15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Alright, next decrease, so that'll be 23.
Let's turn into about head for a second.
So I will say though, right, 23. For those who are vaccinated, they are now finding evidence that the vaccination will last for multiple years, as opposed to the 6 months to a year they were originally thinking. So if they offer it as, hey, just get a yearly flu shot and get your yearly COVID vaccine at the same time, then absolutely that's what I'm going to do. But there's a chance that we won't have to do that. So 24, 25, 6,
Hello.
28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Okay. So that's row 20 done. Next week, by the way, I will be streaming from a new location, as I will be house sitting for friends of mine, and I've already guaranteed to them I'm just going to find a blank wall to crochet against and do my game stream against, because of course I don't want to show any of their identifying things in their place, but I will be streaming from a different place, so that'll be fun. I won't have people walking through the room while I'm streaming. That'll be nice. I might have a cat come and yell at me, but you know. More than likely, the cat in question is going to be yelling at me because he wants food and or attention, but doesn't want me to touch him, and he will bite if I try. So. Well, it's true. I love him, but he's a butt. Just like I love Lady, but she's a butt.
We didn't get to speak.
Speaking of, where is Lady?
Yeah,
I do not see her. She's probably underneath the couch, or the chair. Okay, so this is a single chain around one.
Where are you?
Oh, good. I'm glad. You know, poor Figaro misses Finn so much. She wants to play so badly with Lady, and keeps trying, and Lady, of course, takes every attempt to play as you're trying to attack me. And so now Sun Tzu, the old kitty, for those who don't know, does try to play with Figgy, but Sun Tzu doesn't have the energy to play as much as Figgy wants, because Figgy is 5 or 6 years old, and she is a massive hunk of muscle, and no fat to her at all. She's just muscle. Lady is about the same weight as Figgy and about the same size, but most of her size is made up from fur, and she's not made up of muscle. She's a chunky kitty. So
Hey, blood.
she is, and of course, like I said, she is convinced that Figaro is attacking her when Figgy just wants to run up and play. Figgy, I have noticed, if Lady is sitting where Figgy can see her, then Figgy will plant herself somewhere where she can see Lady's face and will slow blink at Lady over and over.
I saw it.
And of course, Lady's response is just to hiss or growl, not reciprocate in any way. It's very sad because poor Figgy, she wants someone to play with. I know. If we get the new house, we're not going to have an easy way to separate Lady and Figaro, so probably what we're going to have to do is just separate Sunzu, because Sunzu is old and Lady goes after her, and
Oh god, I saw another.
I don't want anything to happen to Sunzu.
Hey, Mickey, it's after me.
So the plan is, I know, Jake was always a very, more taciturn. He would play with Figgy, but that was because they were both kittens at the same time. I don't think he's interested in meeting new kitties now that he's older. But I'm sure that Finn and Bimo are playing together a lot, so that probably helps, because Finn is a very active kitty. I think Jake very much wants to just kind of be petted and cuddled. So, let's see. So this is going to be row 22. We're going to be doing 10 stitches around total, counting the decrease. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm fairly certain that Lady and Jake would get along because they would just ignore each other.
Hey, Marshall.
11, 12. No, we're not switching cats. 3,
Yeah, it doesn't.
13, 14, 15,
Yeah, Main Street.
16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Di would kill me if I got rid of Lady, and the twins would kill me if we got rid of Figaro, so you know. And of course, nobody wants to get rid of Sunzu. So, alright, so 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Yep, okay, right where we need to be. Okay. See, other big news. I saw yesterday that apparently over in Norway, they have got a pill that is potentially going to be a treatment for people with celiac. It works very much like the Lactaid pills that I sometimes remember to take when I'm going to be drinking chocolate milk or eating ice cream. But basically, it's a pill you take about 30 minutes before you're going to be ingesting something with gluten, and it turns off the enzyme that prevents you from digesting gluten, so that you can now eat bread and rye and barley products without having the rather dire consequences of eating those things. So that's good news. I also saw a plan in progress that, alongside other methods that are being used, could potentially help with global warming. Some of the things that are already being done about global warming, we're trying to switch to using seaweed to feed cattle. Cattle already largely eat the parts of plants that humans can't eat. So the silage, the stalks of corn, the stalks of wheat, things like that, the parts that are not edible by humans and therefore would otherwise be going to waste. So cattle are already being fed that. However, they have discovered that by switching a portion of that silage and feeding them seaweed, it reduces the methane output of the cattle. Now keep in mind, of all of the sources of greenhouse gases that we're dealing with, cattle and pigs and other farm animals are only about roughly 17%, okay? But any reduction in greenhouse gases is a good thing. We are also working on breeding cattle and pigs that produce less methane naturally. But again, switching in a portion of seaweed into their diets is a huge reduction in methane, just straight off the bat. And seaweed is a very, very easily renewable resource. It grows extremely readily. Yes, no farts, the family pig would be excellent. Okay. Having smelled pig farts, having lived near a pig farm for quite a while of my life, that would be amazing. Okay. So that was row 23. Okay, so, but what the other thing that they're working on is a submarine that will actually take in seawater and desalinate it and freeze it and then release the frozen chunk as a miniature iceberg. And even though those icebergs do start to melt, if you get enough of them, then they actually help to cool the whole area so they all melt more slowly. It's like if you take a single ice cube and you set it in your glass, it's going to melt much faster than if you set multiple ice cubes in a glass. So that's why this method, along with other methods for reducing greenhouse gases, is potentially a good way to reduce global warming. Okay, so we're going to be doing a decrease in 8 stitches on this row, which means that we will have 9 per round, or per set of stitches. Let's see. They're also, of course, encouraging car manufacturers to use carbon filters, trying to encourage the use of electric cars or natural gas run cars. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I believe I've already mentioned that in my city, at least, all of the buses and ambulances and fire trucks and stuff have been put on natural gas vehicles, so they produce water instead of carbon monoxide. Actually, now that I think about it. Okay. So that was stitch. That was my decrease. So that's 9. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16,
Oh,
17,
please shut it.
18, 10, 9. How well can you hear the munchkin in the background? Is he being disruptive, or can you hear me over him? So there's 19, 20. Okay, so he's not being a disruption. Good. 21. Do not curse when I'm streaming. 22. 23. 24. I lost count somewhere, apparently. Because we should actually be at... Wait, hold on. Should have been at 27 stitches, so let me count real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Okay, good. We are on a color change again, so we are now moving from blue to red. So, okay. That was row 24 done. So, now we're going to do one around the whole way. You can see these color changes are happening faster and faster comparatively, because that's the way that these yarns tend to be made, is they don't do the same amount of yarn on each color. As they get smaller into the cake, they do shorter and shorter changes. Okay, so we are using Lion Brand's Mandala. It's a 100% acrylic yarn. Again, I use acrylic because it is good for working with things for little kids. It's machine washable. It stands up well. I know that acrylic isn't as good for the environment, but in making the toys out of acrylic yarn, they're going to last for a very long time for the munchkins. Wool will actually last longer, however it's not machine washable, and as any parent with young children knows, you really need things to be machine washable as much as possible, because you just don't have time to hand wash something that might be getting drooled on, thrown up on, etc., etc., dropped in puddles, you know. And by making it myself, I'm still doing more for the environment than if I were to just buy a cheap plushie from, say, Dollar Tree, because those are going to fall apart quickly. They're going to be, within a year or two, thrown out and end up in a landfill. This is a toy that will probably be with her for... It might be with her until she's old enough to have kids of her own and she can pass it on to them. Because these acrylic toys, they last handmade. So out of yarn, crocheted. They're going to last a very long time. So I feel better about doing this. Again, if you can use wool, great. But for a little kid, you really need something that's washable. And I'd rather have the washability and the durability than durability alone. But a pain to wash, and therefore it never gets played with. It has to be just set on a shelf and never touched, you know. Okay, so that was round 25. We're on round 26, which is going to be a decrease, 7 stitches, 3 times around. So it'll be every 8. Again, as said, we are using the Planet June Invisible decrease. Oh, and I forgot to say, the Lion Brand Mandala acrylic yarn, the colorway we are using is called Party. I liked it because it is bright, festive colors, very pretty. So, let's see, let's think of some other good news. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I did see that a lot of they weren't being called detention camps by the prior administration, but they were basically concentration camps, let's face it. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so as I was saying, they're still open. However, they have a much, much lower number of people in them. I looked at pictures recently taken in one, and it had gone from packed standing room only to where there's like 2 or 3 people per section, because the processing time has been increased, and much of that processing time has been getting them what they needed to start for the Dreamers, or DACA, because they have reinstated that program that was gotten rid of by the prior administration. So that means that these people who had been placed in those awful, awful places are now in actual housing for the most part. They are on the path to citizenship. I know that there are a lot of people going, he needs to be doing more. But given what he's working with, the fact that we have yet to abolish the filibuster, he's doing what he can with extremely, extremely tied hands. He's trying not to ruin any chance of bipartisanship, even though the other half are trying very hard to ruin those chances. But he is doing things. They're just not happening as fast as what we had all hoped. But any progress is still progress, even if it is slow, halting progress. So we're now on round 27, just single chaining around. Let's see. Other good news, there is now a push towards, again, getting actual... I know. Believe me, I get it, but I also understand what he's trying for. Remember, I'm the one who pretty much can try and at least see from every side of an issue as much as possible. Keep in mind, he is an old white guy, and he grew up with the belief in bipartisanship, because at the time that he was young and idealistic, bipartisanship was actually working. So it's very hard for people to give up. Again, things are changing. It's just slow. Anyway. He is again pushing to expand things like Medicare. He is pushing to try and get everybody, even those who fell through the cracks, onto universal health care. There are being pushes to, if nothing else, forgive college debts. Even if it's only the first $50,000 worth of debt for people, that's still something. And, you know, it gets people like me who has, you know, between me and my partner, $90,000 in college debt. If it forgives the first $50,000, that's $40,000 we owe now instead of $50,000. It's not a case of I'm saying, oh, he's doing a great job, oh, he's perfect. I'm saying he's doing something. He's doing more than what people are claiming. I know. But even making it a holiday yes, it's showy, but it doesn't change things, but it does bring attention to the holiday, which means that cultural perception of that now will maybe push towards revamping the crime bill. Again, even small steps, even steps that to us seem performative only, are still steps.
Yeah, I'm
Okay, so 1, 2, let's see, we are on row 28, so it's going to be 1 decrease and then 6 stitches around, so every 7. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and yes, corporations love their prison slaves, and the problem is we need to get rid of the two-party election system, and it's not going easily on that. 8, public perception is being swayed, it's just 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. You know I agree with you, but you also know that I'm always going to at least feel that we need to do something, and any progress is going to be progress. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20,
I'll do it.
21. Much as I would love for us to be able to, rise up, seize the means of production, everything goes to owned by the people, not by the corporations. That's not likely to happen anytime soon. We're getting closer to that, certainly, because of the fact that, there's a lot of people who have spent the past, year out of work, unable to do hardly anything, living on the very small handouts that have been provided. And I know, believe me, the Pinkertons would definitely be involved, and they would not be on our side, believe me. But there's a lot of people who have been out of work and have had a lot of time to think, and are realizing that they are worth so much more than what they had been offered. There's workers' strikes happening all over the country. Currently, Frito-Lay's is experiencing a workers' strike, and in a lot of those cases where those workers' strikes are happening, there is being changes made, better working conditions, more pay. We're getting results. It just, for one, the media doesn't like to report on the spots where people are getting results. The media only wants to report on... Exactly. Nobody wants to work the minimum wage. We don't have a labor shortage, despite what corporations and the media are trying to tell people. What we have is a shortage of proper pay for fair work, and therefore people are refusing to take those jobs where they are going to be abused and have to have 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Exactly. There's no labor shortage, there's a wage shortage. And corporations are starting to realize this. They are, of course, throwing fits about it and are trying very hard to convince people that, there's nobody wants to work. They want to just live on, unemployment. We need to get rid of the unemployment payments. The thing is, it's not that. It's people want to work. They just want to work and be paid what they're worth. Okay, so we're starting around 30, which is going to be a decrease and then 5 single chain. We'll end up with 18 stitches total when we are done.
Yeah.
So
Yes. It really is.
I'm sure that people really, really wanted to come and listen to me crochet while talking about politics, but it's very important that we do discuss these things As a white male, I have a lot of privilege, and I have to use that privilege to try and do what I can to help others. That's my responsibility as a white male. I have to use what I have to try and help others. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I mean, I'm privileged enough to have a job where I can work from home. I did not ever have to go into the office during COVID, except once to clear out my desk and bring everything home. Like I said, my boss has pretty much said that as long as we continue to do the work and are getting things done, and we're not having issues of callers complaining that, oh, they're not doing their jobs, or oh, they're not paying attention, as long as we're not having people who are playing video games instead of focusing on the task at hand. Yes, I do my job while wearing a tank top and boxers. I sit at the dining room table where I've got things set up as my desk, and I wear my tank top and my boxers, and I can go in the kitchen on my breaks and grab something to eat. I keep snacks next to my desk and can eat those between calls, which is good because of the whole, hey, you were really, really dumb while on keto. I never wondered that. You know that. I have never wondered about anyone who prefers to work for themselves. I've just admitted that I don't have the drive that would make me good at advertising myself, things like that. And keep in mind, my boss is excellent. He, whenever I talk to him, reaches out and is like, hey, how are the plans for the surgery? He has talked to me about whether or not I want to try and work while recovering, and he said it's fine if I don't. He actually has told me that, like, the week after the surgery, I am not allowed to try and work, because he knows I will, because he knows that when I had my tonsillectomy, I went back to work 4 days later, and he knows that I will try to work sick. He knows that when I had pneumonia for months, I worked the whole time. And he tries to prevent me doing things like that. He wants me to take the time off and recover. He actually reached out to me recently because he knew that my kids had gotten their COVID shots, and his daughter was about to get hers, and he wanted to know what to expect, what to do to make her recovery as easy as possible. I told him that our rule in our house is if you are getting a shot, you get ice cream afterwards. And that's our rule. But, things like that. He's great. He has been so happy to work with me on all sorts of things. Where did my scissors go? One moment. I had them. Why are my scissors no longer at my desk? They're there. Okay. They just got buried under stuff. Because my desk is not only my catch-all of general things, but of course my kids and partner like to put stuff on my desk if they don't know what to do with it. Okay, so we have now finished off leg 3 of the plushie. And we can see if we fold in that bottom, it is the exact same size as our second leg. Leg 1 somehow manages to be a row shorter. I'll be going back and fixing that later, unless I decide to do 2 at the same length for the front legs, but I'm pretty sure that elephants, every leg has the same length to it. I don't think they're like, certain animals in the animal kingdom where the front legs are shorter than the back legs. Okay, hold on, I have to get a drink. This says it's peach clear American. It is not. It is actually a repurposed bottle that has a bunch of water in it and a cinnamon stick. Yeah, I'm going to be... It worked out pretty well. I actually put the cinnamon stick in there while it was still the peach drink. I do not recommend doing that. I discovered when I did that carbonated liquid plus cinnamon stick equals splody. So I got to come in and change my pants because I was sitting in the car when I did that and had to take a towel out and put it on my seat, and yeah, that was fun. Okay. Alright, so I said I was going to show people... on the row counter, once you have completed all rows, you hit the little button, and oh look, back to 0. We can start again. Okay, so here's our stitch marker again. Alright, so I promised I would demonstrate the magic loop, so that's what we're going to do. So, this is how I start anything that is done as a crochet in the round, because it makes it so easy. And it means I can pull it tight as quickly and easily as possible. So, 2 fingers, you wrap the yarn once, so you have your tail, and then you have your yarn. You put your loop under both of them. There. Okay. Now, you take the hook and pull the yarn under that loop. Now, you have this. This is going to be our first actual stitch. Well, no, it's not. Actually, that's not the first stitch. Okay, so we end up with a loop just like this. Now, this is our first stitch. We go through both the tail and the yarn, which they're twisted together, but there's 2 there, I promise. You grab a loop, pull it up. Now we use that little loop that's on there and pull through just like any other stitch, and that is our first stitch. If you need me to show you that again at some point, River, I can do that on a individual session with you. Okay. Okay, now that we've got our first stitch in place, we're just going to go under the 2 and just crochet into this loop. So 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so that is actually our first round done. Now, this is why it's called the magic loop, because you can grab that little tail that was left and pull, and now we have a nice tight little circle that we're working in. And we are, of course, going to use that first stitch to crochet into. And since we're doing increases, this time, because we are increasing from 6, we are going to do 2 stitches in every stitch around. That will give us 12 at the end. We're going to leave our tail loose because we're going to need that later to close up that tiny loop that's left, or that tiny hole that's left, because we want to make certain that there are no holes where stuffing is going to show through. That's why I work with such tight stitches when I'm making plushies. Is I want to make certain that there's no place that the stuffing is going to show through on the plushie. So, all the way around, 2 per, it will give us a total of 12 from 6. And from there, we're just going to increase by 6 stitches every row. So,
alright, Nikki, let's go somewhere else.
6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42. Alright, so Once I finish this set of 12, we will tighten it again, and then we will crochet over the tail now. I want to be working from the outside because that's going to make things easier. Let's count real quick, make certain we've got 12. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, now we're going to remove our stitch marker. We are going to turn our piece so that the part that we've been using as the bottom is now our top. Okay, we will pull that tail tight, and now we're going to be working like this. And we're going to go under those two loops, the V. We're going to put this over our hook. So now when we pull through, that tail is captured by our yarn over, and that's going to keep the tail from being able to pull loose again and that circle from opening up again. Okay, so there's one. Now this one we do single chain increase, single chain. So it's 4 repetitions. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so are we sure about that? Nope, I was wrong. Okay, so it's single chain increase, single chain increase. Sorry, we're doing multiples of 3 this time. 4 is next time around. Okay, so single chain increase. That's okay. It means we don't have to... Sorry, grabbed the tail and couldn't figure out which one it was. Okay, so we're increasing this next stitch. I was misreading my notes. So there we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then 7, 8, 9. Okay, now we're going to stop crocheting over the tail. So we're going to leave that because just in case we want to be able to pull it tight again. But we've now captured it enough we shouldn't need to in the future. So 10, 11, 12. Okay. 13. 14, 15. Now, if we were thinking about it, if we were doing a gorilla, I would actually have these 2 longer ones as the front legs, with the shorter ones as the back legs. But we're not doing a gorilla, we're doing an elephant, which again, they have a every limb is the same length. Which, you know, is actually fairly rare in biology of animals. Normally, either the front or back legs will be just a little bit longer based on how the animal moves, at least among mammals. Dogs tend to have longer front legs than back because those back legs are primarily for a springing motion. It's the forward momentum, while the front legs are what grabs the ground and pulls it as they're running. You can't see the hand gestures because they're off camera. Of course they are. Okay. Don't mind me just geeking out about biology. Nope. Yeah. 3 rounds. Okay, so now this one is the one where it's single chain, or single crochet, increase, single crochet. So this is round 4. Yeah. Rabbits actually have, they don't look it, their front legs look like they're longer than their back legs, but that's because the back legs are very folded up, because they are how they do their primary momentum, and with the front legs they really don't grab the ground and drag it under them the way that cats and dogs do when running. They use the forward legs because their front legs, when they're running, really they're just there to catch them, because they jump more than they run. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys all done? 5, 6, 7, 8. It's biology time with Mason. But 9, 10, 11. Actually, at this point, it's counting time again. 12. Once I'm on a single crochet, then I can move to biology time. So 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, perfect. We will stop right where we're supposed to on that. Alright, so next we start our round that is going to be in multiples of 5. So it is going to be, increase, then 3 single chains. That gives us 5 stitches, and we're going to do that 6 times around, so that'll get us 30 total. Okay, so also, just so people know, an increase is so simple with crochet. Go and do 1 stitch into your V, and then you're going to do a 2nd stitch into that same V. So 1, and then right under that same loop, 2. Ta-da! That's an increase. That's all it takes. I swear, aside from the single crochet in itself, increase is the simplest stitch you can do. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 'm just pulling it out to shape it slightly. Okay. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Right. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I need to reach out to a musician I know, because he makes original music based on video games and movies, and I really love his music, and I would like to speak to him about buying his music and then using it as background music on my streams, but I want to get his permission first, because artists deserve to be paid for their work. And if he says, you can buy my music, that's fine, but you can't use it on the background stream, that's okay. I'll find some royalty-free music that I can use, because I would love to have it, but I want his permission, and I want to make certain that it's being done right. So 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I know there is royalty-free music you can use for stream backgrounds, but a lot of that royalty-free music is, I have messed up somewhere. Hold on. We're going to have to pull this out. But first let me figure out where I messed up. Because if you notice, some of these look fine, but some of them don't. Yeah, I messed up somewhere, and I don't know where it was, but we're just going to pull this out. Okay, so, first stitch, there's an increase, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. So we should be at the next increase. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, or where I need to be. Okay, so next increase. 11. Oh, I see where I messed up. Because I can tell I'd increased in the wrong stitch. 12. 13. 14. 15. 16. 17. 18. 19. 20. Now, some good news from my life. I had an appointment with my doctor yesterday. And 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So, okay. We have... No. What is going on here? Did I somehow end up in the wrong number of stitches on the last... I think I'm going to have to pull out 2 rows. Well, I've always said that I want you guys to see the whole process from start to finish, including when I mess up, which happens fairly frequently, let's face it. Okay, so I think that I messed up on a previous round. I think that's the issue. Okay, so we put this marker in the first stitch of the previous round. Okay, so we count and see how many stitches we have in this previous one. We should have 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. What on earth did I do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I've got 24. What did I do? It looks right. Okay, we're going to try this again. And see what happens again. Somewhere I'm messing up, and I don't know where, and it's mildly annoying. Okay, so 1, and of course our stitch marker. 2, 3, 4. sorry guys, I'm going to be counting very carefully this round 5, because I don't want to keep making the same mistakes. So, 6, 7. I'll tell you about the doctor's visit when we're done. So, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Now I should have 4 stitches left, and I do this time. I don't know what was going on there. 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. But I was ending up with 3 stitches left when I should have had the 4, and that's what I have no idea what I did wrong. I'm going to have to go back and watch again. Anyhow, so I had my doctor's visit, and it was just the standard, we're following up, we're doing blood work again. I have to do blood work every 6-ish months, because I'm on a lot of meds that can really screw up your liver. Plus, I kind of screwed up my liver doing keto, and cutting calories down to way below what they should have been. Okay, so 1... But basically the doctor says that if my blood work comes back normal, she will be able to take me off of the medicine for blood sugar, 2, and potentially take me off the medicine for cholesterol, 3, 4. She did put me back on 5. My muscle relaxant, because my shoulder that I have dislocated multiple times now is giving me trouble all the time. I think you guys have noticed during these crafting streams I've mentioned, hey, I have to stop and stretch because that arm is going completely numb. So I'm back on the Flexeril, which means I'm sleeping again, thank God. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now here's what makes my doctor excellent. We've talked before, or I've talked to people before about medical fat phobia, and the fact that it is extremely prevalent. It is very deadly. My doctor looked at the fact that I bring her in a list every day that says this is how many calories, or every time I visit that says this is how many calories I've got, this is what my blood sugar's been every day because I test it, this is what I weigh every day because I weigh myself every day when I get up after I've used the bathroom. And she's like, you know, you're eating between 12 and 1300 calories a day. You've given me the list of what you're eating. It's mostly fruits, vegetables, some proteins, carbs, but they're not a ton of carbs. And you're not losing. You're staying right at this between 300 and 290 mark. And she's like, but here's where it's great. She goes, what are your goals? Do you want to keep trying to lose weight? And when I said, honestly, once I've had my top surgery, no. Because when I have my top surgery, it's going to put me at about 270 pounds after those are gone. And I think that's actually, for my build, a good weight. And she says, I think you're right, because you're mostly made of muscle. And I demonstrated the fact that, yeah, I've got a belly, but it's very much not a weightlifter's belly, but a strongman's belly, which is they've got a layer of fat over a thick layer of muscle. And I demonstrated by flexing my stomach and showing her, if it's not flexed, you can poke in almost a finger's worth, all the way to the hand. But if it's flexed, you can barely get past the first knuckle if you're poking it, because it's all muscle with, some fat over it. And, and we talked, and I was like, it's frustrating because the reason my surgery is going to be so delayed and the reason it's going to cost as much as it's going to, I got the quote finally, it's going to be $3,500 because it turns out the hospital is out of network, but the surgeon is not. And so the surgeon, the insurance will cover all but 10%. That's my copay. The hospital, they'll cover 70% of, so I still have to cover 30%. But the reason I have to do it at the hospital is because of my weight. Which, okay, I understand that. The hospital has special things that they can do in case of respiratory distress or anything like that, because most people at my height and my weight are gonna be, I'm fat. I'm obese, fine. But they're going to be very much more obese. They're going to have much more likelihood of respiratory distress during the surgery. So of course they want to, just for protection's sake, for safety's sake, have me have the surgery at the hospital. But she was like, well, what would it take? What would you have to weigh to get it done at the surgical center, which is in network, as opposed to the hospital, which is out of network? And I said, well, the surgical center won't operate on anyone who is over a BMI of 40. And she said, well, what is a BMI 40 at your weight, or at your height? That would be 235 pounds. And she just stopped and stared at me for a minute and went, okay, the only way you're losing 235 pounds is if only your muscles went. Because I have at least, according to her, 235 pounds worth of sheer muscle. That's not counting bone, that's not counting fat, that's not counting organs. And that's why she says that once I've had top surgery, 270 is a perfectly reasonable weight for me, even though I am 5'4", because I am a giant slab of muscle. I love my doctor. She does, because of her religion, she does not feel that homosexuality or transgenderism is a good thing. However, we also had a long discussion of LGBT issues while we were talking yesterday, because, as she said, it's not my place to judge people on their lives. It's my job to provide medical care. And so she wanted to know what she can do to help with transgender patients, to make certain that they feel respected, to make certain that they feel accepted, and to make certain that she's using the right pronouns, that she is providing them the best care. She was like, do you know where I can learn more about how to treat transgender patients to ensure that I'm providing them the medical care they need? And I explained that, well, one, there are various endocrinologists in town that they can get hormones at, including Planned Parenthood now, which is good because my insurance has just decided that my endocrinologist is out of network. So I'm going to have to switch over to using Planned Parenthood. She didn't know that Planned Parenthood in our area offers hormones. They do now. They didn't when I started. She also wanted to know where 14 Alright, sorry. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. She wanted to know where she can get resources, so I urged her towards the Oklahoma Equality Center, which is an excellent place for transgender resources in my town. She wanted to know, what do the various pride flags look like, so she can recognize them when they come in and know what to expect and what she can do to try and help people. And so I gave her a link to a very good breakdown of the various pride flags and what they mean and where they came from. I discussed with her what is agender, what is bigender, what is gender fluid, what is the difference between bisexual and pansexual, which, let's admit it, there's not much of one. There really isn't. I know people are like, oh, well, bisexual people only like males and females. No. Bisexual means I like those of my gender and those of other genders. That's all it means. Pansexual means the only real difference is between bisexual and pansexual. Bisexual means I like others of my gender. Yeah, I figured you were. But I like people of my gender and people of other genders, but there are potential exclusions of certain genders, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. As I was discussing with one of my sons, if he's attracted to women, and only women, and he were to get into a relationship with a trans woman and felt turned off by her having a penis, that's okay. You can have preferences based on anatomy, but you can't treat people differently because of their anatomy. And so if it turns out that he's attracted to women and only women, but is not attracted to pre-operative trans women, that's okay. As long as he explains early on, when he finds out, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to continue to date you, it's not fair to you, and it's not fair to me. But if he were to meet, say, a trans woman who was post-operative, then he would be okay with dating her and continuing the relationship, because that's, well, yes. Pansexual, which is what I am, and apparently what 10-9 is you can be attracted to anybody regardless of their gender or anatomy. It's just, that doesn't really matter to you. And of course, there's people who are things like demisexual, where they're only attracted to people after they've formed a strong romantic interest. There's people who, I have a friend who, he is very aromantic. He is sexually attracted to people, though he does need a emotional connection to them to feel enough attraction to go through with a sexual relationship. But the minute that relationship, an actual relationship, comes into it, as opposed to friends with benefits or something interesting, something like that, he loses all interest. He wants nothing to do with a relationship. He doesn't want to have a person he dates, but a friend he has sex with every now and then, fine. One night stands, as long as, he's finds them attractive enough to be worth it, fine. Okay, everybody's got different levels of what they're comfortable with. People should stick with what they're comfortable with and, reach out to try other things as they feel more comfortable doing so. Sorry, this is way off topic for me it's not, but, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I did need to at least get back to where I was on crocheting. Okay, so 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. That's not right. Dadgummit. Okay, hold on. Backing up a bit. Backing up to the most recent increase right there. Okay, that's my most recent increase. Counting again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay, so 23, 24, 25. Oh. Okay, pulled that out. 21. Yeah, I'd increased 2 spots in a row. That was the problem. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, yes, now I'm where I should be. So, 30, 31, 32, 33. No, I'm not where I should be. Dadgummit. I think I miscounted. I'll go back and count the whole thing when I'm done. But I should be finishing this out with 36. Okay. And yes, it is just like you going back, erasing whole layers when you're drawing so that you can redo them. I've seen you do it. 35, 36. Okay, I'm right where I need to be. That's the problem of having so many things I'm passionate about and know enough to talk about, is I get distracted while talking about those things I'm passionate about, and oh look, now I have to go back and undo and redo to get back to where I need. Okay, so we have just finished row 6. So we are now doing row 7, which is an increase and then 5 single crochet. So 1, and this time I'm going to just focus on counting, because we're about to get to the point where I'm just doing single crochet all the way around and can actually talk. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, no. Try that again. 19, there we go. 20, 21, 22, 23, just a second. Okay. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Just realized I was doing that thing again where I was pulling it up close to my face and off from the camera. 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. Okay. 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, and 42. Right where we should have ended. Okay. There. Now, okay. So we just finished round 7. Now we're going to do single chain, back loop only. That's how we're getting that nice distinction of this is the bottom of the foot, this is the top and sides of the foot. So for this, again, we have our V's. We go right into the middle of the V. Only grab the back loop and pull that one through. We're going to just single chain around single crochet around doing just those back loops. Okay. So. And this will give us the nice distinct, this is the bottom, this is the rest. Love doing this, makes for such a nice plushie when we do this on the bottoms of the feet. It's not so important with some plushies, you don't really need to do that, but also, I swear I have more shirts than this one. I did notice when I was going back and watching some of the older streams that I wear this shirt pretty much every other Saturday. It's so comfy. It's just a standard women's tank top from Walmart. Men's tank tops don't have fun prints. It's very annoying. I'd have to buy like a tank top from a specialty vendor. If you're going to like Walmart, then you can't get tank tops with fun prints. They're just solid colors, especially if you're getting the less expensive ones. But if you go to the women's section, and I see nothing wrong with shopping in the women's section, I'm short enough that women's shirts sometimes fit me better, then yeah, women's section is just fine, and they have colorful, bright tank tops. My kids both have tank tops from the women's section because, one of them wanted, I have one tank top that is cat faces that look like the word meow with the face of the cat replacing some of the letters, and he really, really loved that one, so we found him one in the women's section that fit him, and he loves it, and he wears it frequently. The other, we found him one that was red, white, and blue striped because he was going through one of those periods, but we got him that. We actually had to sew the shoulder straps to be shorter because he is so slender that he doesn't have any like pecs to hold things up, and so for him it was, if he wore it the way that it was intended, it would slip down. Where he was trying to be macho, he's gotten past that, thank goodness, but of course he'd had the jingoistic macho-ness, and so of course he wanted something that was red, white, and blue, but he's actually past that now. He's admitted to me that he doesn't really, he'd like to be physically strong, sure, but that's because he and his friends like to wrestle and stuff, and he'd like to be able to compete with them, and not just get tossed around like a rag doll. And I told him if he wants that, he needs to, put on some weight. Because, of course, he's the one that's a skinny little stick. His brother's got some good weight to him, just, not much of it is muscle, but that's okay. They don't have to be super muscly. I mean, I am, but they take, physically, in build, they take a bit more after their other dad. who likes to claim that he's a dwarf, but is not quite dwarfish in build. He's a bit more half-dwarf, if that's a thing. Which, also okay. Nothing wrong with it. But, you know, he doesn't have my, frankly, rock-solid build. I am trying to get him to do things like go out and walk with me, at least on the weekends when, you know, I go for my nightly walk after dark, most days. But he goes to bed about an hour to 2 hours before I finish work. And since I go out after work, we can't really walk together. But we are trying to get him to walk because he's having a lot of issues with his ankles and his knees, and the doctor has said that the best way he can strengthen them is by using them. So walking is very important, much as we would love to get a membership at a local gym where he could go to a pool and swim because he can strengthen them that way too. He won't go on his own, and I can't go the hours he's available, except on weekends, and it's just not worth getting a family gym membership, because we saw how expensive that was the year that we got the Y membership. He won't get one and use it enough to be worthwhile unless I can go with him, which means it'd be better if, for swimming at least, we just do the day pass at the Y, which is $5 per person, you know, every Sunday. And then he just walks with me on Saturdays, and every now and then he can get one of the twins to go walking with him, but he hates to do it in the summer because it's hot and sweaty and muggy. Yesterday, it was nice and cool. However, it decided at just about the halfway point of the walk, because I tried to get in at least a half-mile walking, but right about the halfway point, it decided the skies were going to open up and it was going to rain, so we booked it to the little church that I go to when I'm doing a half-mile, and then we waited out a little bit of the rain until it lightened up some, and walked home the rest of the way, with it raining, but not heavily. I have discovered, by the way, that I don't know if lizards are Christians or something, but I sure find a lot of them late at night on church doors. I found 2 adult Mediterranean house geckos on the door of that big church where we vote at, or where we used to vote at before you moved out, 10-9, and then, so I found 2 adult Mediterranean house geckos there, and then a juvenile Mediterranean house gecko at the little church with the gazebo in front of it. Those were fun discoveries. I also found a snail. That was cool. I've been taking pictures of everything and putting it on iNaturalist when I do. So, if you ever want to know what I've been finding while out on my walks, I can send you a link. Obviously, they are the scouts of the vampires, yes. Well, they don't like having their pictures taken much, but if I'm very slow when I do it, they will hold still while I get a picture or two. Okay, so that was round 9. Alright, let's keep going. So we're now on the point where it is just single crochet all the way around. You can see, if I flatten it a bit, that it's got that nice flat bottom with a distinct ridge. And that's what I was going for when I did the back loop only. But yeah, I am finding a lot of things. I've found some wolf spiders while out walking that I've gotten pictures of. I have ID'd them as rabid wolf spider. So Lysinopres rabidosa, I think is what it's called. But that's what I identified them as. The stripes match up, but others have said no, that's actually this slightly different, I think Murphyosa wolf spider. they're both common in our area. I lean very much towards the Rabidosa just because the stripes line up. The Murphosa doesn't have quite the same striping pattern, but I'm not one of these people who's been doing this for years. I'm relatively new. I mostly focused on birds up until recently when I realized, hey, I'm walking at night. Lots of bugs are active at night. So I'd been getting lots of bug photos since then. Found some oriental cockroaches, which, by the way, those bugs that we would always call water bugs, the ones that would get in the house, the ones that looked like roaches but were like 6 inches long. Those, or not 6 inches, but like 3 or 4 inches long. Those are a type of roach. They are the oriental cockroach. However, they are not the kind that infests your house. They normally live outside because they are also known as water bugs. Turns out that it's a common name for them as water bug. So I was right that they were water bugs, and so was my partner right that they were roaches. Just we were using the wrong name for the same thing, or the different names for the same thing. But I've found lots of them outside. They're not we are going to infest your house and live in here. They much prefer if you will take them outside. It's just when it is super rainy, they come into the house because, despite being called water bugs, they will drown if there's too much water. So, so I've been finding lots of those when I'm out walking. I saw a possum, but it decided to dart off before I got a picture. I really should have taken a picture of the possum that got in the house, and I had to get it outside. That was fun. Especially since I got woken up like 2 hours after I'd fallen asleep, and so my medicine had already worn off and I wasn't going back to sleep. But, that was fun. I couldn't get it to go in the bucket that I needed until I just poked it just right and it darted into the bucket. And then I just tossed a towel over the bucket, picked up the bucket with the possum inside it, put the bucket and the possum in the garage, removed the towel, and then shut the door to the garage so it could get out. And of course, our garage has holes in it big enough that the possum could get out on its own and go find somewhere that was not inside our house. Poor thing, though. Figaro was who discovered it, and boy, did she want to play with that possum, and it wanted nothing to do with her. And that's how we found out it was in the house, because it was, as I describe it, making noises like an enraged Donald Duck as she kept trying to get to where it was hiding. So, that I really wish I'd remembered to take a picture, though. It was adorable. It just didn't need to be in our house. And of course, if you ever do find a member of the local wildlife in your house, and you don't have a safe way or don't feel capable of safely removing it to the outside, there are places you can call that will rehome that wildlife without, putting it in your neighborhood where it could potentially... Oh, yeah. Mice don't survive Figaro. Figaro is a very good mouser. But yeah, there are safe places that you can reach out to that can take those animals and put them out in the wild instead of in your neighborhood. Some of those animals are very much adapted to life among humans or in areas with human habitation. Possums, raccoons, squirrels, foxes in our area all do just fine living among humanity, but we don't want them in our house. I know. He also killed that snake under your bed once, which was such a tiny little garter snake, it wouldn't have hurt anything, but, and remember the praying mantis? When I was trying to show the twins the praying mantis, and he just comes along and murders it. But yeah, certain bugs don't need to be in your house, but if there's a way you can safely remove them, I've got a special tool that can be used to remove things that are potentially poisonous, like spiders, which it's very unlikely that you're going to have an actual poisonous spider in your house that, at least where I live, that is not a brown recluse or black widow, and even those honestly prefer to live outside. They don't want to be in your house. They don't like being in your house. The only spiders that actually want, the only spiders that actually want to be in your house are actually jumping spiders. Because, go figure, these tiny little spiders like humans. And I mean they like humans. As far as you can ascribe a human emotion to a spider, they find us fascinating. They will attempt to play with you. And they're not, I mean, yes, they'll bite you if you try to hurt them. But if you set your hand down on a surface that a jumping spider happens to be on, and they are not feeling threatened, they will walk over and climb onto your hand to investigate, and you can then just relocate them. I have no interest in being famous. Thank you very much, Spambot. You have fun. Go do your other things. That said, but yes, you can relocate jumping spiders very easily by just setting a hand down nearby. They will climb onto your hand willingly, and let you carry them wherever. I personally remove them from areas where there are not many prey things, now that we have gotten the infestations that we have various times dealt with, because they were this house was infested with roaches heavily when we moved into it. And it took us many, many years of exterminators and trying all sorts of things. They are finally gone, thank goodness. Cost a lot of money, a lot of time. We fought them for years, trying to do it on our own. Finally, we pulled in the big guns and paid a lot of money for a year's worth of treatments from one particular company. But they're gone, thank goodness. And because... Okay, yeah, I'm right where I thought I was. But because we don't have the roaches in the house anymore, that means there are far less options for jumping spiders to eat. So what I do is, since we do have, because I have indoor potted plants, areas with lots of little, I think they're called fungus gnats. They like to grow. They like to show up where there are succulents, and so I just move the jumping spiders, to near my succulent tanks, or in my succulent tanks in some case, and they have a happy little life eating the fungus gnats. And so I'll occasionally see one hopping around, and sometimes they will grab 2 or 3 bugs at once, and so you see them, bouncing around with 3 little gnats hanging from their mouth. It's very cute, I suppose, for those of us who like spiders. But also, fun thing, if you are ever bold enough to try it, jumping spiders will chase the red dot that you can use for cats, the little laser pointers. Jumping spiders will happily chase that, and they are very adorable when they do it. You can also do that with ducks, by the way. Ducks will chase that, as will drunk college students. So, there's that. But yeah, I've got a specialty tool that if I find like a wolf spider or a spider that I am not certain of the species and do not want to risk being bitten by, I can use it. It's got little very thin plastic bristles, so it looks a lot like a broom, but they open up, and then when you release the catch on them, the catch will close those bristles and it'll pick up the bug without hurting them any, and you can just take it outside. There is a person on Tumblr named, I believe their account is Panger and Grim, but they have a pet jumping spider named Puff, which is PUF, stands for Public Universal Friend. And so they have been documenting their adventures with Puff, and it is very cute. Puff likes to escape the container that they live in, which is a very nice place, and go and find where the container that the wingless fruit flies that they eat, Drosophila something or other, is, and then we'll keep trying to pounce on the outside of that container trying to catch the bugs. So whenever Puff disappears, they know where to find them easily, and then Puff will walk onto their hand and they will put them back in their container and give them a couple fruit flies so that they can engage in their hunting behavior in a safer environment that does not have 2 cats and a giant rabbit running around. So 3 cats actually. I just forgot their roommate has a cat too. So, but if you want to, Puff is always a great thing to look up. You can see how they look after molts. There's also another person I follow who used to post a lot about spiders because they have multiple tarantulas as pets. However, they haven't been doing that as much because they're currently moving to a different house and getting everything set up, having just completed a divorce. And so they're not really posting many bug things at the moment, but once they do, if you want, I will let you know who they are, and you can look them up and follow their exploits with their tarantulas as well. I don't plan to keep any bugs as pets at the moment because I don't have a house that has central heat and air, and I very much worry about the potential of it'll get too hot or too cold, and that is why I don't have bugs. It's why I no longer have fish, because I do not feel safe in providing them with an environment where they will not be at risk of injury. I know you do. I have met your spider. She is very much a lump. She does not do much. But if this move goes through and I have a house that has central heat and air, I might look into getting fish again, or what I would really love is to get a corn snake. My home office is going to be off limits to the cats except for Sunzu because she is 19 and she will need a nice quiet place where she can get away from the younger cats and their drama. So she will have a nice place where she can be there, and I'm not too worried about her harassing any... Oh, thank you for the follow, River. I'm not worried about her harassing any pets that I might get that are non-cats. She does occasionally decide to wallop Figgy and then chase Figgy around the house, but that's just because they're playing, so every now and then Sunzu still forgets that she's almost 19 and wants to play like a kitten. If you get out a toy that has like a dangly string on it, oh my goodness, she goes insane and loves it. So we play with her frequently, and she gets twice daily, she gets a supplemental goo that has glucosamine in it to try and reduce joint pain. We've gotten her a set of stairs so she can get up on our bed because we realized that she could no longer get on our bed on her own because she can't jump that high. We've made accommodations. During the day when my partner is working, she really, really wants to cuddle with people, and she will stand at the edge of the bed and scream at him because she wants him to come and lay on the bed and cuddle her. And so the twins, since they mostly hang out in their room, they have taken to, when she starts doing that, they'll come and get her, and she gets to lay on their bed. And thankfully, Fox has finally gotten to the point that he is nice and calm enough that if he's laying there playing on YouTube, she'll cuddle up against his stomach, and she feels comfortable and rested and will sleep against him, and he'll just gently pet her. And so it's worked out fairly well. But like I said, I'm not too worried about her if she's in my office if I have a snake or lizards or spiders or things like that, because I'm not worried she's going to go after them. Now, if Figgy were allowed in that office, then I would be concerned and would not be getting those particular animals. Counting again, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yes, okay, I'm right where I thought I was going to be. But yeah, I'm right now, if it goes through, planning to get 2 rabbits. My niece, Sophie, she and her husband, their business, which is a combination bookstore, bakery, cafe, and bar. It's an amazing place. I would love to go there someday. They just live too far away. But it has taken off to the point that she is no longer really able to care for the rabbits, because she had she would raise meat rabbits, New Zealand's, and she was also raising Angoras, which are beautiful and used for not. They're used for fur, but it's not we kill the rabbit and take the fur. It's you just remove the fur the same way you would for a sheep when you shear a sheep. And it's wonderful. It can be used for yarn, but she's trying to rehome a bunch of those rabbits. And so I was like, if I get this house and can get everything set up, I would love to take one of your Angora, because then I can, use it to make yarn. I can maybe even learn to spin yarn myself, which would be excellent. And then also, another friend of mine is looking to rehome one of his rabbits as a temporary measure. He does want to keep the rabbit, but there is a possibility he's going to have to move, and the housing market is not good at all where he is. I mean, it's not good anywhere. It's very much a seller's market. People are buying up properties ridiculously fast. And so he's concerned that he won't be able to get a place where he can have his rabbits, all of them, and he thinks it will be better if he can have just 2 at a time while he is house hunting. And so I would be happy to, if I get this place where I have a dedicated office that I can keep the cats out of, I would be happy to take on that other rabbit as a temporary measure until he has found a place where he is in a good situation and can take the rabbit back. So the plan is to get 2 hutches to have in my office. Thankfully, rabbit hutches don't need a ton of space, and then when I am not working, I can take them out to play in the backyard and get them some yard time. His rabbits are vaccinated against the virus that has been killing rabbits, both wild and pet, across the U.S. He's made it a point to ensure that they are vaccinated. So, and I'm sure that Sophie has done the same, because most people who are farmers have done that, because it is very highly contagious. It is very easily communicable. It is spread through mosquito bites, and it is just devastating. The wild rabbit populations in the U.S. It causes, well, no, I'm not going to go into the details because it is very unpleasant how these rabbits pass away. So, yeah, that's definitely a thing to consider if you are thinking of getting pet rabbits, is being willing to pay for the vaccine for those rabbits, which also means they will need to be either microchipped or have a tattoo in their ear so that they can be identified. You have to have those identifications, or they will not allow you to vaccinate the rabbits. So that's something to keep in mind if you're wanting to get pet rabbits. Let's see. Alright, we are on round 14. I think we're going to finish round 15 here, and then I'm probably going to end the stream. How is it my streams always end up talking about farm animals in some way? That's just... I know I grew up on a farm, but you'd think that I have moved on from that, since I haven't lived on a farm since I was 14. But apparently you can't take the farmer out of the boy. So... okay. Well, that just sounded like a Catholic priest joke, now that I think about it. Okay. But I think we're going to finish this last round that is just single crochet around, and then... oh, I get to help you learn how to cow. I can actually put you in touch with a dairy farmer. Well, they're working on becoming a dairy farmer. They currently have, I think, 7 cows, and the cows that they have, they don't actually milk them or anything. What they do is they purchase calves that would otherwise be sent to beef raising farms, and then they purchase primarily bull calves because they purchase them from a dairy, and dairies don't really have much use for bull calves. Nobody puts cows in beef crates anymore, just so people know. Calves are not raised in beef crates. They are put in a calf hutch for the first, 2 months of their life. The hutch gives them plenty of room, and the reason they're in those hutches is to prevent them getting diseases from the grown cattle. So they are raised around other calves, and then they are moved to a group pen where the other calves play and socialize, and then when they reach a certain age, they are moved to the actual herd. However, with these male dairy calves, as a general rule, they are sold when they are old enough to join the group pen to other farms that will then raise them up to beef weight, full-grown beef weight, and then they are sent off to be butchered for meat, which is fine. They are given a very nice life. There are, of course, people who abuse cows. There are people who do that with any animal that you're raising for any use. There are people who abuse dogs, okay? This does not mean nobody should own dogs. This does not mean nobody should own cows. There is nothing wrong with butchering an animal for meat once it reaches a certain size or age. It's not a problem. It really isn't, because if you're raising these animals, there is a very good chance that you are treating them well, because if you mistreat them, they're not going to develop good meat. They really won't. They're not going to give good milk if you abuse a dairy cow. You can't abuse. The only animals that are being raised in the rather horrific battery farms, and there are movements away from those even, because if you can put a chicken in a 1 foot by 1 foot cage and it will continue to produce eggs, but those eggs are not going to be high quality. They're not going to be tasting good. And so, there are places that do it, but they're not going to be getting quality animals. And so I don't recommend anyone buy Tyson. That's my big thing, because Tyson has figured out how to maximize profit while minimizing care, and they have done it in a way that is actually harmful to the animals. And so I will not buy meat from Tyson. If you are worried about your environment, and you're worried that, I'm thinking of going vegan because I don't want to hurt the environment, and dairy and cattle are bad for the environment, that's not true. You will do far more benefit for the environment by just buying local. Don't buy quinoa that has to be grown. Hold on, switching to, since I'm putting away the crochet. Don't buy quinoa that has to be grown in Bolivia and is therefore depriving Bolivian humans of their primary food source. That's not a good thing to do. That's just, and plus the cost of trucking all of that in is actually, okay. According to 10.9, amaranth is native to the U.S. and is a replacement for quinoa. But if you really want to help the environment, if you're planning to go vegan for environmental reasons, you do better than to just buy locally. Support your local beekeeper. Buy local honey. Support your local farmer. Buy local meat, eggs, dairy. You're going to be doing far more for the environment by buying locally than you will for buying something vegan that had to be trucked in from who knows how far away and has a massive amount of carbon, plus has tons of human rights violations associated with it. If you're wanting to stop eating meat or reduce your eating of meat for humanitarian reasons, you're worried about the treatment of the animals, again, buying local for the meat, dairy, vegetable things that you get is going to do far more for animals. Because if you're buying local, you're supporting local farmers. Those local farmers treat their animals well because they can't, unlike Tyson and the massive companies, they can't afford to have animals die from abuse or neglect. They can't. Because if those animals are abused or neglected, they're not going to be making a profit on them because it's going to be poor quality meat, poor quality eggs, poor quality milk. Nobody's going to want to buy it because it doesn't taste good. Buy local. It's the biggest thing you can do to help animals, to help the environment, to help your local economy. Because if you're buying from a massive factory farming place, yeah, you're paying less. And I'll admit it is very nice to pay less. But in my case, I go to the Mexican or the Hispanic market, which is local, and the meat there is fairly inexpensive. The meat is all from local Hispanic farms. So you can get local meat at a good price. It's good quality meat. It tastes amazing. Sometimes the cuts are kind of odd cuts. You can buy things like beef tongue. You can buy things like tripe. You know, cuts that we don't normally use here in the U.S. Yes, they are. My partner loves to buy beef tongue or beef cheek meat, which, again, not normally used in American cooking, but common in Hispanic cooking. And he cooks it and makes an amazing meat that you can use for tacos. You can use for... back before I went on my diet, would cook up a thing of mashed potatoes and mix that meat in to add protein to my potatoes. It's wonderful. We also go to the Asian market, where a lot of the produce is, again, locally grown. Though, of course, there are some that are trucked in from, or flown in from overseas because they don't grow locally here where we are. I try to focus more on the locally grown stuff. We also have here in my town a place called Mother Road Market, which is a indoor farmers market, and it is local farmers selling produce they've grown, meat they raised themselves, butchered themselves. Yes, the Saturday market at Mother Road. There is local dairy you can get there. It's not in Brookside. It's actually down on Lewis. It's just off 11th and Lewis. Sorry. 10-9 and I live in the same city. 10-9 was my roommate, but moved out after meeting their now husband. But so every now and then I will be mentioning actual, like, physical locations here in town for them to see. But, you know, we have the local farmers market, the indoor farmers market at Mother Road Market. We have a place locally called Sprouts, which Sprouts is across the U.S., but it's called Sprouts Farmers Markets, and all of the food that they provide at that farmers market is locally sourced, locally grown. So if you've got a Sprouts near you, it's a little more expensive than going down to Walmart, but the quality's better, and you're supporting local businesses. Always a good option. If you're in the area where I am, imperfect boxes are good. However, they do require transport from other places. So again, if you're doing it for environmental reasons, yes, it's good that you can use... Hold on, I'm switching which side of the couch I'm sitting on. But if you can use imperfect, it's good. You get a variety of produce. If you have there are local farm cooperatives that you can sign up to. You provide them a set amount of money at the beginning of their growing season, and then every week you will get a set amount of produce based on what they've harvested. There are also cooperatives that do the same thing for dairy, for meat. There are ways to help. And if you want to go vegan just because you don't feel comfortable eating meat, feel free. But there are ways you can ensure the safer, more pleasant treatment of animals. There are ways you can avoid human rights violations in what you're purchasing. Even if you're going vegan, do not avoid honey, okay? I know a lot of people are like, oh, but honey, it uses the labor of these bees. Those bees are producing in excess. By removing that honey, we're actually saving bees' lives, because what happens is if bees produce far more than they will ever use. It's just what they do. Even wild hives, they will produce more than they can use, and then they're stuck in a place where there's far more food than they can ever use, and there's no room for them to place eggs, and so that's where you get bee swarms from. They reach a point where they're like, we can't live here anymore. We've stuffed it full. We can't have any more babies. So then they swarm. They move to another location. During that swarm, they're incredibly vulnerable to die off. They're incredibly vulnerable to predators. Bees are one of the only animals that we as humans, if a beekeeper isn't treating their bees right, those bees won't stay. Chickens, you put them in a pen, you maybe clip their wings, which, by the way, does not actually cut anything that hurts the chicken. They have no nerves in the feathers. When you clip their wings, all you're doing is clipping the flight feathers only to prevent them from flying over the fence and therefore keep them safe from predators. There are people who don't clip their flight feathers at all, and their chickens are free range. It's fine. Yeah, it's just exactly. They can still jump. When I grew up on the farm, we had a chicken coop. The chicken coop had rafters, and despite clipping the flight feathers, they could hop up into the rafters. They could flap enough to get up into the rafters and roost there if they wanted. We preferred that they didn't, because the ones who would roost in the rafters would then poop on the chickens roosting below them. Kind of an issue, but it doesn't actually prevent them from performing any natural behaviors. All it does is keep them in an area where they are safer. Ducks also, yeah. But anyway, with bees, if they don't like the beekeeper, if the beekeeper isn't providing them with what they need, they'll leave. We cannot keep them in any way unless we keep them in a way that they feel comfortable, safe, well-fed, supported. So if you see a beekeeper who has 30, 40 hives and they're all full and buzzing with bees, you know you've found an excellent beekeeper. If you find someone who's only got one hive and it looks like there's almost no bees and they're all leaving, you found somebody who didn't do something right. But bees, even if you're vegan, please continue to use honey. Honey does so much more for the environment than using agave nectar or using sucralose or any number of other sweeteners, because honey, the bees have to pollinate the plants to get that honey. They have to. They cannot get the things that the nectar they use to make honey without pollinating plants. And we are suffering a massive die-off of natural pollinators. Natural pollinators in our area, or in my area especially, are bees, wasps, hornets, bats. All of those are natural pollinators, and all of them are suffering massive die-offs. The bees, wasps, and hornets are all suffering die-offs from pesticides. The bats are suffering from white nose disease, which it's a death sentence if a bat gets it, and it spreads through colonies and just decimates the colonies. We need those pollinators. Without pollen, We could, but we do need the native ones because the European honeybees don't necessarily recognize certain plants as a food source. The native bees do. I love how I stopped crocheting and now it's environmentalism with Mason. I swear, every time. Environmentalism and, farming. It's just what I talk about. Also, medical stuff and politics. Go figure. Yes, the bees are dying off. And we need... This is true. But you know what? Native bees, even the ones that don't make honey, such as carpenter bees, it's good to support them. Because they're still pollinating those plants. I'm in the process of collecting supplies to make a bee home. I'm going to put it on the back fence so they're not close to the house, and that way they're not building their carpenter hive homes in my garage like they have been. But bees are buy honey, buy local honey, because those beekeepers are doing more for agriculture and for the environment than hardly anyone else. Because those bees are pollinating plants. If you really want to help pollinators, get rid of your lawn. Replace it with native grasses, native plants. There are so many options for native plants that don't necessarily get high enough that you have to mow. Or just don't mow and replace your grass with native plants that grow a bit taller. I would love if we could just replace my whole yard with chickweed. Because chickweed and dandelions are some of the first, easiest foods for native pollinators before anything else has bloomed. Because they start blooming super early in the spring. Same with clover. Clover, chickweed. Chickweed, by the way, is the purple things. They get about this tall, but people think they're weeds. They spray their lawn with weed killer to kill them off, and then the bees get into that weed killer, and you've got dead bees. Or they spray them with pesticides, because I saw ants in my yard. Ants are naturally there. They're supposed to be. If you really want to keep the ants out of your house, spray at the edge of the house. Don't spray the yard itself. Yeah, even just taking a section of your yard, just a section, you don't even have to do the full yard, but turning it into a flower bed and planting native flowers. Milkweed. You like butterflies? Plant milkweed. Doesn't look great? Monarchs use it. Monarchs require it. Their caterpillars can only feed on milkweed. It's the only plant. And it looks beautiful. And even if it's being eaten by caterpillars, then you have these pretty black and orange and white striped caterpillars on it. And those are pretty. You can do so much. Yes, they are. Yes, and they're a big Okay, so Vincent here makes a good point here. Interesting fact about grouse lawns, they're a product of military landscaping to prevent troops sneaking up on fortifications and noble estates. Yes, but they're also a product of around the 50s and 60s when we had the whole nuclear family takeoff, which they were very much a case of keeping up with the Joneses. By having a lawn, you showed that you didn't have to grow your own food. You were doing well enough. You could just have land, which it became common for everybody in the 50s and 60s. Before then, it was a lot of the rich would have these vast lawns, and it was because they were showing off. I don't have to grow my own food. It was a product of demonstrating your wealth. Okay? But honestly, if you've got the money and leisure time at this point, growing your own garden at home actually is more of a sign of wealth, because it means you have time and energy and money enough to pay for the soil, to pay for the tools, to pay for the seeds. You have the time that you can step away from working to put flowers in the ground. I mean, it's a complete reversal, and a lot of people are still struggling with that because they're like, well, I should be making enough I don't have to grow my own food. But the thing is, it's a sign of leisure to be able to do so at this point. Because most people are having to work 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet and don't have time to grow food. Because it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. Yes, the value of gourmet food items, you can track them from soil to table, and the closer you are to the source of that food, the better quality it's going to be. There is nothing wrong with buying frozen, buying canned, buying dried. There isn't. But as long as it's getting nutrition in you, I don't care what you're eating, honestly. But if you can grow your own produce, raise your own meat, it's going to be light years better in quality. It's going to taste so much better. I mean, okay, sorry, I was making a note on my pattern so it's clear where I am when I start next week. But, yeah. Anyhow, things that I am passionate about, apparently. Because, of course. That said, the stream is now at 2.5 hours, and I think that I only spent like an hour and a half of that actually crocheting. The past half an hour-ish, we've just been talking. Do what you can. Don't feel bad about what you can't change. I have to use a lot of single-use things. Like I buy little cups of tuna that are pre-portioned. I buy things of chicken that are pre-portioned. And I have to because I'm on this very strict diet where I need to know where every calorie I'm eating is coming from. Okay? Not because I'm trying to eat under a certain number of calories, but because I managed to develop an eating disorder while trying to diet very drastically. And now my doctor insists I have to get a certain number of calories, and I struggle to get that amount unless I plan out every meal I have for a week. And that means I need things individually portioned so that I know exactly how many calories are in it, so I know that I'm getting enough. Because if I don't do it that way, I will not get the full 1,200 calories I have to have. So for me, I cannot let myself feel guilty about using single-use things that are not recyclable. I can't. Okay? If you can't either, for whatever reason, do not let yourself feel guilty. Make the changes you can make. Do the things you can do. Every little thing we do helps. And that's what it all comes down to, is we're all, at the moment, trying to reduce harm. So, keep that in mind. Don't let yourself feel guilty about what you have to do to make your life livable, but do what you can to make the whole world livable for everybody else. Alright, that said, I want everyone to be safe. I want everyone to have a beautiful week. I will be back on Thursday, early morning, sometime between midnight and 2 a.m. Central Standard Time for my weekly video game stream. I will be going back to doing Star Wars The Old Republic because they are done with the Double XP week. I'll be back next week on Sunday. I will be streaming from a different person's house, but again, all I need is a blank wall to stream against and my crochet. So, hope that everyone has a beautiful week, does what they can, stays safe, take care of each other. That's the most important thing. Take care of yourself, take care of each other. I'll see y'all next week. Bye.